for anyone that listened or hasn't listened along, that we kind of just covered off on a glossary of terms to help me out with...
and how did that go with your mate across the road?
You want to hear a secret? I've been avoiding him. I've had just enough opportunities just to be like, oh, got to run out with the kids, or just like a toot toot. He's a lovely bloke. I do really enjoy chatting with him. I know he's at the, all right, this is where I know he's at the moment where the price reduction conversation's coming.
Oh, that's funny.
And I don't want him coming over and asking me like, do you reckon it's a good idea for, I'm like, I don't do this.
Going once, going twice, sold. You're listening to The Property Pod.
All right, guys, welcome back to The Property Pod, your weekly engagement into real estate here in the Hobart Marketplace. I'm your host, Aaron Horn, and I'm joined by superstars of real estate here in Hobart, Patrick Berry and John McGregor. Welcome back to The Property Pod, boys.
Always glad to be here.
Always good to have you back, and we are riding high on the success of... I hate to say this out loud, a 20-year school reunion. How have we been out of school for 20 years?
That was surreal. Yeah, that is surreal, I should say.
How has that happened? Like, literally, someone at the start of the year said, it's coming up. I said, nah, it can't be that close. 20 years. So, on the weekend, I drive up to our old stomping ground, Dominic College in Glenorchy here. I'd pull up into the car park and I see John's car and Pat's car.
Yeah. On time.
I was about to say, you know, what was there, 60, 70 kids at our school? And what, 10 turned up, of which 3 of them were us? It's like we see each other every day.
Yeah. And I live around the corner from one of the other ones that was there, and I see him when I'm walking my dog. So really,
see others at the coffee shop.
Yeah, it was look, it was fun. It was good. It was awesome to see the facilities at the school, thinking that my boys might be going there one day and just being like, "Holy crap!" Like we could have had a podcast when we were 15 had we had these facilities.
A music studio. That's amazing what they've done with that place. Which I was really happy to see actually that your old high school and primary schools just actually come a long way. Rather than, because there'd be so many, I'd imagine, with other people across the time that would just say they've just gone backwards. But Dominic's just flying.
I'm pretty sure my school fees alone have paid for that music wing. And my kids have only been there for 3 years, John.
Shout out to Mark and the other teams at the Tony, the Dominic Old Scholars for showing us around, and for I think it was Jocelyn and Tamika did a lot of the heavy lifting on actually getting it off the ground. So it was really fun to. I felt really bad on the tour. We're touring around and he's showing us all these places and he's saying, "Oh well, this is now the woodwork area," and everyone's just in their own little pockets reminiscing on like, oh, do you remember when such and such was making out with that person over there? Or do you remember when I got the atomic wedgie over this way? No one was listening to what he had to say about. I was like, I don't care what it is now, mate. We care about what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, he could have just said...
but he's banking on you guys bringing your kids there. So he's like, look how good this place is.
Stop talking about your wedgies. And one thing I did like, though, is I think all of us actually enjoyed each other's company. And Tony, he just said, geez, you guys are a chatty bunch, which was kind of a nice change from the last 10 years. He goes, geez, you guys can drink a lot.
You're not wrong. Well, shout out to the one person who did drink a little bit too much at the end of the night at the Moon Hotel. You know who you are. You're probably in Marble Bar at the moment listening to this deep down in the mines. We won't mention what you are. Vroom, vroom to you. Matthew Carr.
Vroom, vroom.
Heaps of fun. It was a blast getting together with everyone from the old stomping ground. So shout out to that. Jumping into real estate stuff, I actually really enjoyed last week. For anyone that listened or hasn't listened along, that we kind of just covered off on a glossary of terms to help me out with.
And how did that go with your mate across the road?
You want to hear a secret? I've been avoiding him. I've had just enough opportunities just to be like, oh, got to run out with the kids, or just like a toot toot. He's a lovely bloke. I do really enjoy chatting with him. I know he's at. All right, this is where I know he's at the moment where the price reduction conversation's coming.
Oh, that's funny.
And I don't want him coming over and asking me like, do you reckon it's a good idea for... I'm like, I don't do this. So after last week's chat, I'm like, it's been on the market a little while. I know that this is going to be the next step. I've heard enough in the offices. I know what's coming. I've just been avoiding. I'm just on the avoidance train. I'm not his listing agent. If I get a commission, I'll advise him on this.
Yeah, maybe you negotiate that in, mate.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been avoiding him like the plague. But I do want to know some more terms. Oh, yeah, you got something, Pat?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm ready to go.
You gave me the finger.
I was scratching my face.
I would have taken a bid on that on Saturday.
You're desperate on the auction on Saturday. How much Pat over there for 1.1 million? So shit, no.
Just scratch your face. No. That's a bit again. You're already still in.
I think I missed this, but yeah. Before the reunion, you were doing your best auctioneering.
Down at Sandy Bay. We did end up with a bid at $1 million and had to pass it in, but it took me about 12 minutes of just constant, just back on the lawn, going. Eventually, until the bloke finally just put his hands up to be the last. Because the idea
he was like, "Oh, let's just make this end."
Well, the best part about it, look, in the end, we weren't because we knew the reserve was too far.
Yeah,
and if I do an auction, people will still come out to watch it. You can still make it a bit of fun, just go through different terms and try to point them out individually. I think I tried to call for there was a Labrador that I said I could have sworn that put its paw up. And then a couple of my friends were there, and they were just because they live around the corner, and they just generally want to see what it was. But she said, "Oh, John," started to ramble a bit, so I felt like just putting my mum hat on and just wanted to just call you, go, "Johnny, now wrap it up, come on, take a little too long."
So the guy was putting you out of his misery, basically. It wasn't really a case of
let's put this rabbit dog down.
Yeah.
But at least the owner could, because the price is, it's too far. But at least they could go, well, he had a crack at it.
Yep.
Rather than going out, they go, yep, no, right. Back in.
I think you got to put on a show for the vendor anyway, John. So well done to you. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's it. But the thing was, he wasn't interested. He was so far at the back, he wasn't even participating or watching it. So he had no idea what was going on. But they're always good fun. They're always good fun to do, and it just ended up on passing it on a vendor's bid.
Yep. So still on the market and still available out there if you are looking for a home in Sandy Bay.
But if you ever want to come to one of my auctions knowing that no one's going to bid, I will make a fool of myself for at least 15 minutes.
So make sure you put aside a little bit of time.
Yeah. Set aside your morning.
All right. Well, let's jump into some of this buyer talk. So, people out there, there's some terms there that you were saying. So, you passed it in. Hit me with what passed it in means, because I'm just kind of I think I know. I've seen the block, but again, hit me with.
It's just the term for that it didn't sell under the hammer. So where the one of them's a vendor bid. So we have as the auctioneer, you have the right to bet on the vendor's behalf. And so what happened in that particular case, the guy put in a bid for $1 million even. I counted it with a vendor bid at $1,025,000. And because there was no other people in the room.
This vendor bid always makes me interested, because last time I checked, the vendor's trying to sell the house and get rid of it, not buy it back.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put a bid on my own property.
It is an odd thing, but I'd be really interested to hear about the evolution of it a bit. But you're right, it's only trying to continue on that sequence of bidding to raise it. And I guess you could think of it almost like a counter offer. It's like counter offer. Like you would in a private
treaty. Yep.
Yeah. So, but what happened in that case is a reserve price is the price that under the hammer, like with the auctioneer at the front. Once the bids hit that price, it's now on the market to sell. So if the owner had a reserve price of $1 million and the guy offered $1 million, I could have in theory called, we are now on the market, which means whoever's the last bidder will secure that property. And
that's when you don't want to scratch your face.
That's exactly right.
Or you might be buying a house.
You'll be buying a house, or your Labrador to raise it for. But pass it in is in the situation where it doesn't sell. The last bid in that case was a vendor bid. So we didn't sell. It reverts back to a private treaty situation.
Okay, sure. So
and then a private treaty situation is the auction's finished, and now it's going to transition to an advertised price.
More like a traditional thing you'd see on realestate.com.
That's it.
Yep.
All right. So we've covered off on passing it in, private treaty, auction. The one thing I want to kind of work out is when you're at the auction, I'm just going to run with the auction thing here, is when I'm making the bid, does that make it an official offer?
Yeah.
Or a contract? Like, so let's talk offers, contracts, and kind of where these bids fall into place. Like, by raising my hand or touching my nose, as you just said, is that a legally binding offer / contract / bid? What does it become?
So, as part of the rules, is that you're actually, if the auction has accepted your bid, you're not allowed to withdraw it without my consent. The only problem is that I can't control you just bolting down the street and disappearing. See
you later,
yeah. So the reality of an auction is if someone just throws their hands up and just runs away, it's like, well, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
But in theory, if in the auction process, if you put your bid up, you're holding the bid, and you just disappear, I was like, well, where did Olmec go?
You just walk back into the crowd, like backwards.
Yeah, or disappear into the hedge like Homer.
Oh yeah, that's a great reference.
So there's some difficult things to navigate, but yeah, in theory, you're not. If the bid's been accepted, you're not allowed to withdraw it without my consent.
So in theory, yep, I'm doing this.
Yep.
I'm raising my hand for the audio people, or I'm scratching my nose. You like that?
Or your bid.
Yeah, or the bid. That is a legally binding.
In
Like,
theory,
if I was,
yep.
you could take me to court to say, or what would be the repercussions of the runner?
Look, what we would more likely do is you'd probably just say to the vendor, look, they're doing a runner. We have to find another buyer, because to try and actually force you to commit before you've signed the contract, before you've put the deposit down, would just be it'd be too much work, So there are the situations where
Lucky that doesn't happen very often.
no.
Pretty confident people that bid at auction are there because they want to buy the house, not because they want to run down the street.
Run down the street and just see what happens. Yeah.
Hey, look, there's pranksters out there everywhere. So you then turned on to sign the contract. That became like the next step, where you said like, oh, we've had to tell the vendor that they haven't signed the contract. So bids happened. Then signing the contract or putting in an offer, and I'd like to work out what these terms mean.
There's two scenarios. Even if the property doesn't sell under the hammer, as we say, the last person who placed the bid has the first right to negotiation. So what we do is we approach that bidder and say, hey, thank you for your interest. Come inside. Let's see if we can negotiate a deal between you and the vendor. So there's actually an incentive to actually still be the last bidder, even if it doesn't sell, even if it doesn't hit reserve, because now you've got a one-on-one situation.
Yeah.
Whereas if it goes, then that's your only chance to do it one-on-one, because then, of course, if we advertise it to the rest of the market, boom, you're back in competition. So in that bidder's mind, he thought, well, stuff it. I'm going to throw the bid out there and then see what I can negotiate behind the scenes, just in case. Because at this point they won't know what the reserve is until he walks inside, and we can illustrate that to him.
Yep.
And see if we can't close a deal then and there. And if not, of course, we go back, we catch up with the end vendor and go to the market as normal.
Yep. All right, so let's remove the auction side of things, and I just want to talk offers and contracts and what they mean.
What that means?
Yeah. So if I put an offer in on a property, say my old mate across the road. He comes at me and he's just like, I've had enough of this. I just want to sell it. And I put an offer in.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So an offer basically means it's all on your terms as the buyer.
Okay.
So you're dictating the price, the conditions, settlement, everything to do with it is all on your terms. Now, if the vendor, your mate across the road, accepts that, it then becomes a contract.
Yes.
So it's the same document. We don't use different documents here in Tasmania. Other states, I believe, they might have an offer form versus a contract.
It was just an offer to commit. Well, we could do the same in theory, like with our online form that we've created.
But effectively, it becomes a contract once the other party accepts it.
Yep.
So that's the main difference between offer and contract, is that it depends. It's all on their terms, or it's and you agree to their terms.
Sure.
And an offer could be anything. Like you're throwing out, like, mate, I'll give him 600. I'll give him 600. Like, well, that's in theory an offer.
Like 600 sheep, 600 cats. Like
Still
you've got to
offer. Yeah.
So it could define anything as long as the offer is a defined expression of interest.
Where the difference is in Tasmania as a practice is it evolved that most offers are drawn up on the actual contract itself. And there's two reasons for that. One, it enables because there's so many little small nuances through the contract that can change, and you want to understand what every single one of those are, so both the vendor and the purchaser know exactly what's being negotiated.
Yep.
And once you've got that signature, obviously, it just extends another level of commitment. But you can absolutely do that through verbal or email. That's just a common practice that Tasmanians have adopted.
And then I guess the next one is conditional versus unconditional.
Yep.
Be then what it flows to next. So once you've got an offer that's been turned into a contract, it can fall into two brackets: a conditional contract or what we call an unconditional contract.
Yep.
And the main difference between them is a conditional means that, you know, it's a contract subject to certain things happening within a certain time frame.
Sure.
Where an unconditional contract means it's pretty much officially sold, just waiting for a settlement date.
Yeah, and the specific word they use, if people pick up it, it's called a condition precedent. And all that means is that this condition precedes the contract moving forward.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
So then once it's unconditional, there are no conditions left. And
So
we're
an
sold.
example of a condition could be finance,
building.
building, new fence being installed in the backyard. Like,
Yeah.
it can be anything. Like,
Yep.
But the main two that you would probably come up against would be a finance or a building or a subject to another house selling. They're your three that would be the main difference.
Okay, so they're your three core ones. So you've got finance, whether the person's going to be able to obtain the
Money.
finance provided to fulfill the contract.
Uh-huh.
What was the second one?
Maybe they've got a house that they need to sell before they can purchase this property.
Okay, so this one I covered. This is subject to sale.
Yep.
So the condition of this contract being preceded is that.
I need to sell 123 Smith Street within so many days.
Yep.
And then the third one would be a building inspection. So getting someone to attend the property on your behalf and check that it's...
So essentially, you're making an offer provided that it meets a certain standard of a building
Quality.
quality.
Yep. Nailed it.
Oh man, I'm going to say that. I'm going to go. I'm not going to avoid old mate. I'll just go across and say, "But I got all these terms down pat. I'm good."
And the interesting thing is that the way that the clause is written in Tasmania is building quality is based on the value of the defect limit. And defect, in our definition, is anything. It could be, you know, there's a crack in the floor, there's a missing brick, there's, you know, the foundation's bad. What we do in Tassie, though, is we set a defect limit, or like a threshold, you could say. So we'll just use 10 grand. And the idea being is if the building inspector goes through and finds a bunch of faults with the property, that progressively each one costs a certain amount. And then should those combined, you know, cost more than 10 grand to be able to fix, the purchaser actually has the right to withdraw from the contract based on a failed defect clause. Building inspection.
Yeah. Awesome. Actually, you just hit on one final word I think I wouldn't mind covering off. Is it like this withdrawing idea of an offer, like being like I don't understand contract law well enough to know, like, when can you do the bolter or disappear into the bush, or like once you've made the offer, and I guess I've worked out now that signing the contract is the point where it all becomes more official. Like you put your John Hancock on a thing. Hit me with this withdrawing thing, because like, you know, this one fell through, or this listing fell over. This has got to do with some of these unconditional, conditional stuff. Is that?
Yeah, it can actually start as early as the offer itself before it's even signed by the vendor.
Yep.
So I might sign an offer today for your house, Aaron.
Yep.
And then John's your agent. John's got a thing on and he doesn't get to you until tomorrow morning, for instance. In that time, I have a change of heart and I decide I don't want to buy it anymore.
Yep.
I can actually ring up John and withdraw my offer, providing that you haven't signed it. So, and he hasn't told me that you've signed it. So up until the point that we get offer and acceptance, which is you accepting my offer,
Yep.
I can withdraw it at any stage with no strings attached.
It's not official until it's.
Yep.
And like Patrick said, is that you got
That's his name.
it's not
I'm like, where's the comedy in that?
You're so used to calling someone, like it throws it out. But once you've got the offer and acceptance, as Pat said before, that's when it becomes contract.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So-
withdraw before contract.
That's when we move into your second question, which was how do I withdraw from an offer or an offer falling over after it's been signed by all parties?
Yep.
Well, that comes down to your finance and your building and those things.
All those conditions.
You know, maybe I've got a clause in there that says I need to borrow $500,000 within 21 days.
Yep.
And it gets to day 21 and the bank can't give me the guarantee that I can have that money. So then I've got a decision to make, like either I have to withdraw because the bank said I can't do it, or I need to pivot and ask for more time potentially to keep trying, or, change tactics or walk away. There's different scenarios that can happen.
For sure.
Well, and the other thing, in the contract, it describes the purchaser must use all reasonable endeavours to fulfil the terms of the contract. And take the finance clause, for example. Like, we can't just go, didn't get my finance. No. You need a letter from your bank stating that you didn't get finance. So therefore it becomes, used all reasonable endeavours.
Yep.
Then the other part too is that if your time frame ends on the 22nd day, that means your time frames have ended in terms of,
based on that original document of a contract, that I've got 21 days to.
So it also means that that's what Pat was saying, is that unless you get an extension, or the vendor then on the 22nd day, once the time have lapsed, is that they can choose to to cancel the contract,
terminate or withdraw.
Yeah. And so
what's
therefore,
happened.
the vendor has the capacity then still get your deposit back and other elements, but that's another way it can withdraw.
So we're having a few of those at the moment where unfortunately
things are falling through.
Things are falling over. Banks just been that little bit tighter, and with these interest rates increasing at the moment, someone that got pre-approval 3 months ago, 2 interest rates have happened since then.
Yeah,
maybe all of a sudden they can't buy a house as expensive as what they thought they could.
Yep.
So there are a few challenges at the moment in the market, but we're working through most of them with most buyers, and I think 99% of buyers are pretty well educated and know what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
And
that's because they listen to the Property Pod.
That's right.
And I don't think there's any of them out there that are going out and mortgaging themselves so high to the limit that, the smallest interest rate's going to force them not to be able to buy a house. So it's not happening huge, but it is happening a little bit.
Yeah, no, sure. I guess it was just, some of those terms are, again, last week we spoke about them, and it helped me understand, even though I was avoiding old mate, it helped me understand a few things. I just thought if we covered off on a few of those before the end of the year, that might be a handy way of, getting us through to the end of the year and then resetting again for 2023. I think the plan is, lads, we're going to go one more round. We'll have a Christmas special. We like to do it. Normally we have your brother on for Christmas. Is he coming down?
He won't be here at this time.
He doesn't want to get COVID again. He got COVID last time.
He stood at the mum and dad's top room like a creeper, like the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, the worst part is I could see him or you just peering around the corner, this really awkward peer.
Christmas for our family was weird last year because aside from me, everyone, Luke got COVID, Scott got COVID, mum and dad got COVID, so no one was actually able to spend time together. Yeah.
John's at the dinner table, full spread.
Home Alone. It was full on Home Alone. John's just there setting up little traps for anyone that leaves their room. Don't leave your room.
We get his pan to the face.
Big iron dropping down, whacking him on the head. All right, so we won't expect. I think he's filming Taskmaster at the moment, isn't he? I think I saw the other day that is the new Channel 10 show.
He keeps getting filming.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to that next year. So, that's just in Luke McGregor news.
All right, we'll just jump into our pool of other celebrities to bring in next week.
Yeah, we got this. All right, so Christmas bonanza next week. Don't know what we'll do just yet, but watch this space, and we will see you all next week. Ho, ho, ho.
See you guys.
All right, bye. You have been listening to The Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Code.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek then use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information without first seeking qualified and professional advice.